Good morning, business law class. So I wanted to walk through your week with you, and starting out on Monday, March the 8th, you will be looking at your PowerPoint notes, and then you're just going to take notes from your PowerPoint notes into a Google Doc and submit that here on that. When you click on the date, you'll see your PowerPoint. Let's look at that for just a second. Get it to come up here. So this is all about understanding contracts. Now, when I talk to you about writing, you'll be writing a report soon that has to do with your contracts and elements of a contract. So these are the PowerPoint notes that are going to give you all that information that you're going to need for that. This is just you don't need that. But elements of a contract, these are your elements, and you need to know what all those elements are. And to be able to have a contract that's enforceable, you have to have all these elements. Then it goes through each one and tells you exactly what they are. Pay attention to the verbiage as you're going through them. Offeror is the person who makes the offer. Offeree is the person who the offer is made to. Looking at requirements of an offer, you see you have to have serious intent, has to be definite and certain, communicated to the offeree. And then they go through termination of the offer, ways that it can be terminated. You can have revocation, rejection, counter offer, death, insanity, expiration of time, and also destruction of the subject matter. Obviously, if I'm trying to buy a car from somebody and on their way for them to deliver it to me, they have an accident and the car is totaled, that's destruction of the subject matter. We can't go through with a contract when what I was supposed to be getting is no longer there, no longer a viable option. So this talks about option and firm offer. I'm telling you, you're really going to need to know these, so make sure you pay attention to them as you're going through. And if you have questions, contact me and let me know. This is going to show you some scenarios. Bob called Kevin and told him he would sell 10 of his baseball cards for $50. So the offeror is Bob, the offeree is Kevin. And is this really an offer? And it's not. And the reason is that it's not definite and it's not certain. He just said, I'll sell you 10 ball cards for $50. There's no terms set up in this. Okay? So this goes through another scenario. Y'all can read through those. Next you have acceptance. It is the willingness by the offeree to go along with whatever the offeror has set in place. If you accept the terms exactly as they're given to you, that means that is a mirror image rule. Any change from that acceptance is no longer a mirror image rule, and then it becomes a counter offer. So, for example, if somebody's trying to sell me a car and they're going to sell it to me for $10,000, and I come back and say the car is not worth $10,000, I'll give you $9,000. Now I've made a counter offer. And they may come back and change those terms again, because they may say, well, I'll sell it to you for $9,500. And we're trying to meet in the middle. But every time there's another offer made, it becomes a counter offer. And it replaces that original contract offer. Bilateral acceptance is when you have two parties who agree and they accept. Unilateral is when the offeror promises something in return for the offeree's performance. And then you have silence as acceptance. This does not represent acceptance. And the offeror cannot word the offer in a way that acceptance would be considered that. It goes on in and talks to you a little bit more about bilateral and unilateral. Then you get down to genuine agreement. And you can see here causes that a genuine agreement would not be fulfilled in a contract, and it lists those causes there. And now it's going to go into each one of those causes and tell you what those causes are. So duress, that's feeling like you're threatened, not necessarily harmed per se, but feeling that threat of force or bodily harm. Undue influence, some kind of unfair pressure that you're putting on you to do something. So, and people can be very persuasive. Then you have unilateral mistake. It's an error on one of the parties. Does not matter which party it is. Mutual mistake would be if there's an error on both sides. And innocent misrepresentation. You thought what you were saying was true, but it turns out that it wasn't. So that's innocent misrepresentation. But then there's fraudulent misrepresentation, which means that you purposely told something and you knew it wasn't true. These are ways that you prove fraudulent misrepresentation, and it goes on for a couple of slides. Next, you have capacity, and that's your legal ability to be in a contract to begin with. I think everybody in this class this year is a minor, and if you are a minor, you don't have legal capacity to enter into a contract. Also, if you're mentally challenged or mentally incapacitated, you also cannot enter into a contract. And someone who's drunk or intoxicated or on drugs, they cannot have the legal ability to understand and enter into a contract. They do mention here a person serving a prison sentence. They also cannot enter contracts. Then it goes on, it talks about minors, it talks about the mentally incapacitated, it talks about intoxication. And next you have consideration. Going back, this is another element of your contract, and it's going to talk about here the benefits and detriments by both parties to the agreement. Be sure you look at those, because you've got a little bit of everything in there. Also forbearance, not doing something that you have the right to do. Moving on, you got adequacy of consideration, nominal consideration, and this is just when they don't wish to tell how much money is involved, and usually it's a very small amount. Agreements without consideration, it's important to know what these are. If you promise to make a gift has no consideration. A gift is just something that comes from the heart, and it doesn't have to be returned. And this is when you get into law, like when two people when they become engaged, and the one gives the other one a ring. Is that a gift? Do they have to give it back if something happens and they break up and they don't get married? And it's been fought in court before, but I don't know, you decide. Do you think that's a gift or not? Illusory promises. This is some kind of wording that's not correct in the contract, and it allows one party to get out of legal obligation. You have existing duty, and it talks about that there. And there's two different kinds, there's public and private. So look over that. And in past performance, something that has already been done, you can't, consider that consideration in a new contract. Skipped over right here. Promises to a charitable organization, there again, that's a gift or a pledge. Promises covered by the UCC, and promises that are discharged in bankruptcy. Here's some exceptions also to consideration going on. Promises barred from collection, promissory estoppel, and that means you rely on what a person said, and it gives you the elements of that as well. Alright, the next element of the contract is legality. And where did that go? It's going to go down and tell you about illegal contracts. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You can't go into a contract for anything that's not legal. So, people selling dope, people gambling, anything like that, that's not legal activities, so you can't make a contract for it. You can't put out a contract, and I'm sure you've watched movies and stuff where somebody would put out a contract on somebody's life, so they hire somebody to kill somebody. That's illegal. That's not a contract. And it goes on and talks about all the different illegal contracts. Then you have statute of fraud. This requires that your contract be in writing so that it's enforceable. If you just have a contract and it's word of mouth, that's difficult because you got one party against the other party saying what took place. And that's real hard to prove in court. But if it's in writing, you've got a leg to stand on. These are the characteristics of a contract. They can be valid, which means it's a good contract. It can be a void contract, which means that it is no longer good. It can be voidable, which means that you can make it a contract that will not stand up, or it can be unenforceable, meaning that they can't enforce it at all. You have expressed or implied, bilateral, unilateral, oral, or written. It's going to go into all of these as well and talk about each one of those. Let's see. This will be a contract debate. Y'all can look over that if you want to. I kind of skip these activities when I'm talking about this in class. So, really your last slide will be this one here when it's talking about oral or written. Be sure when you go through these to send me a message if you don't understand the notes involved in today's lesson. Alright, I'm going to move on to Tuesday. For Tuesday, you're going to watch this video. It there again goes through elements of the contract and explains. You'll also read right here in your textbook, pages 100 to 114, and you'll complete the 2.01 capacity and legality discussion. It is in the block right here behind or below your textbook. So you'll read this and answer in your discussion forum. On Wednesday, March the 9th, you'll look at your textbook, and then you are going to go through this and answer this, and it'll go right here. You'll submit your work here. So if I were you, I'd just go through, and I might even just copy this and put it in a Google Doc and answer it as you go through. Alright, so here's your textbook again. I threw it back in there because on Thursday you're going to have another assignment with your textbook. You'll answer these questions. There again, you can just copy this, put it in a Google Doc, and then submit it for the day. And then on Friday, again, you'll be reading your textbook, and you'll answer these questions. If you would, just copy that, throw it in a Google Doc, answer it, and then you'll submit it. Your work seems fairly cut and dry, but if you get into information you're not sure about, be sure and send me a message and let me know. I hope all of you have a great week. It's not a real difficult week this week, so also I would suggest that if you have not completed assignments, go into your grade book and look and see if you have slash marks. If you do, that means that I've not been able to find your documents or you've not submitted them yet. So if you see a slash mark, submit those documents, get them in so I can get them graded. Hope y'all have a good week. Thank you.